Right, okay. Well, we'll start with measurement in a moment. But before that, what I want is each panellist to introduce themselves in turn. And Calvin, you introduce yourself at the end as well, because some people weren't here at the start. So we'll start with Jeff in a moment. And at the same time, as well as introducing yourselves, just to answer the first question that was on the agenda, which is what do we need from the next generation of TV audience measurement systems? And are they going to deliver it for us? So, Jeff, let's start with you.
Morning. Actually, good Lord, it's 5 times more people out there than when I first sat down there. So yes, I'm Jeff Eales. I'm the Director of Systems and Development at Sky Media. I can't do my little thing, which was I'm now classified as an inventor because I actually have my name on the AdSmart media insertion patent. So I had a lot to do with that. I have spent pretty much most of my non-sales time chairing the Barb data user group, being involved in Barb specifications for the movement of linear TV. And we're, at the moment, absolutely focused on how can we get one single measure to enable us to move forward on that.
Is it going to be possible?
Oh, God, yes.
Barb deliver exactly
Oh, God, yes, it's possible. Yeah, anything's possible. It's not necessarily going to be easy. I think we have a reasonable plan. I think there's things in which I'll happily explain. I'll kind of explain to you. I think we are. It's quite interesting your presentation, because the one thing we've got to be very careful of is trying to benchmark ourselves against the way the US sell, because it's very old, very old. And so when you talk about spots, we haven't sold a single spot to a single spot rate for 20 years. Okay, 20 years. So the and we are us, and particularly Ireland, are somewhat unique, it would appear, in that, because part of the linear sale is that it's kind of stuck in selling spots and have the inventory here, and we'll show it and we'll buy a spot, and come on, 80% of all the spots we trade, and we trade 40 million spots in our sales system every year. 80% of those are placed by an auto-gen mechanism that is absolutely specifically looking at audience delivery. That's what we do, and to be able to merge that with a currency that looks like it will be a single amount of money for impressions, sounds like we're close. Okay, I'll happily develop that later on.
Okay, sure. Okay, well, Jonathan, you...
Yeah, hi, John Waite. I'm the head of product at Amplifi, which is part of Dentsu Aegis in the UK. I'm absolutely not an inventor. I just criticise everyone else's inventions, pretty much. But my head of product role is a bit weird in agencies. Effectively, if you think about an agency product, it's our planning, our buying capabilities. So I spent the last probably 4 years developing our advanced TV strategy, how we do all the stuff that you were talking about. I, as well, was quite heartened to see the UK is miles ahead of the US. That's brilliant. UK, come on. In terms of how we buy audiences, how we use data, and how we translate that from planning audiences right the way through to buying and executing on those through partners like AdSmart, through people like Barb, through Samba. In terms of the audience measurement side of things, I think from a UK perspective, I don't think it's ever been more interesting. I think we're actually entering into a couple of years where we'll probably see some big change. So I think the industry is over-reliant on Barb. It's a JIC, not necessarily a measurement panel. We'll probably get into that later. But there are loads of interesting companies, and what I'd like to see is more collaboration between those companies, between those data sets, to build out the next generation of measurement in that space.
Okay, but at the top level, and I don't want to just focus on Barb today, but most audience measurement systems are trying to do similar things. So they want to unify reach and prove incremental reach across multi-screen and show you the frequency across all screens. I mean, if we get that, is that a major game changer for the agencies?
I think it's hygiene, to be honest. I think it's required. And we've been doing it to good effect for the last few years. Probably not as good as it could be. Everyone would want a single source industry panel, probably, to be able to trade off. I think everyone's working to their own variant of it. I think first and foremost, you've got to get to a consensus on what's a view, what's an impression, the real basics. Like there's a study from IPG released the other week where they measured viewability on TV, but fundamentally what they class as viewability on telly was different to digital.
We'll come to that in a moment.
You can't even get the definitions right at the moment. The text one thing is probably almost there. Yeah. The rest of it's just consensus.
Okay, we'll come to that in a second. So, Calvin, you just introduce yourself for people who missed you at the start.
Yep, absolutely. My name is Calvin Johnson. I'm Senior Manager of Television Partnerships at Adobe. I work specifically on the demand side platform, so the ad cloud, and I work on a group focused on advanced television solutions. I work a lot in the US, but I'm also kind of responsible for international expansion as well. I want to quickly clarify the point on the US style of buying. So they're not transacting just solely on spots in the US. There are absolutely systems for audience buying and kind of audience-based guarantees and transactions with broadcasters. But I think the challenge that I was looking to illustrate earlier is one that I think is common everywhere, that certainly there are systems available for automating the plans that are focused on building reach against age and gender. But as we start to introduce additional attributes, and if we start to look at activating insights from digital audience segmentation, there's really historically been a gap in our ability to connect that. And I think that's an interesting need of JICs that we can speak about moving forward.
Okay, well, you and Sky are both part of a kind of I don't know, consortium is the wrong word, but a grouping who have been organising some research on what we need to do next in terms of metrics and measurability, and you've sort of surveyed the market. Now, 2 weeks ago, Adobe announced some findings. 64% of people want a standard definition of TV and video impressions, and 72% want a common principle on ad viewability. And I guess the major question is, given the huge gap at the moment between what a digital view is and a TV view is, does everyone have to shift over to a TV view, which is a higher standard, or is there a compromise to be made in the middle? And let's just go each of you in turn, because Jeff, I'm sure I could guess your answer, but...
Well, you might not guess my answer, actually.
Okay.
So the answer is yes. There's what we've been looking at through Dovetail is that Dovetail has a different way of measuring than Linear does, and clearly we need some form of being able to put those two together. And I absolutely believe that both sides have got something to bring to the market. Okay, so. But right at its base, and this is my kind of flag-waving mantra, which is apparently excruciatingly dull, but very, very important. One of the things we have to do is, let's just state the kind of the bleeding obvious. The bleeding obvious is that we've gone from lots of people all watching the same thing at the same time, yeah, where you can have a panel that measures it, and you can be pretty reliably sure that those metrics and those statistics are correct. And we know that because we took the 500,000 set-top box panel, looked at that viewing against the Barb viewing. We thought, tell you what, it could well show up some differences. It didn't. Yeah. Okay, in the areas where you thought it would be, where you thought for ITV, Sky, some larger viewing channels, it was pretty much smack on. Guess what? Where the long tail is, it struggles. Surprise, surprise. But now we're in a world where everybody does something different. Everybody's literally doing something different. Even if you and I go on the same SVOD service, pick the same piece of content, we'll almost certainly see, if it's ad funded, we would see different ads. Yep. Okay, so now not only, even when we're doing the same thing, we haven't got the same ads. So we've now got a real problem of a many-to-many relationship down here. For me, the only way of doing that is we have to be able to identify every single commercial independently. And the only way at the moment of doing that is either watermarking, fingerprinting, or some method that something external, potentially external, or connected via a wire, picks up. Okay? So that's where we're kind of going. If we can do that, and we know pretty certainly who it is, because there are two definitions of what and who, if we can do that, then we can build a currency.
Okay, but very quickly, for TV, to charge for a TV ad, it's normal speed, 75% viewed.
That's the AdSmart metric, absolutely. Okay. And that's pretty much where the Dovetail metric would seem to be going.
Yeah, and Sky goes
a period of viewing, yes.
I mean, Jonathan, would you expect, all your broadcaster VOD to hit that kind of metric before you want to pay for it? 75% viewed?
Yes. I think so. It has to be, we're trying to look for a measurement system that we can plan against. across all screens. So we've historically worked it back to what Barb measures as a view, and that's actually quite hard to pin down because the methodology tends to be around you have to watch the majority of the clock minute on that channel to be counted as a view. Doesn't mean you've watched the ad in full.
Right.
Or for 75, that's a misnomer, that's not true. So it's not a perfect measurement system, but that's the only thing that measures linear TV. You have to be able to work it to something in the digital world. So we tend to look at OTS, so have you had the opportunity to see the ad rather than full view, because you can't force someone to watch your ad. You can make sure it's in view, the person is present, and then we're looking forward and ahead on a project we're working on globally is something called the attention economy. So starting to think about how much attention people are paying to ads, which goes above and beyond basic metrics and talks more about the creative, talks more about the messaging you're serving in the environment. But at basic level, was the person present and did they have the opportunity to see it?
So that's your key metric. But just in terms of trying to unify the planning, you know, Calvin, if you want to sort of bring YouTube in and treat it all as one big pot and make it really easy and treat a view as a view, does YouTube need to hit the same kind of standards as TV, or are you willing, or should marketers be willing to kind of find a compromise and maybe YouTube say, okay, we all agree 50% or something like that?
Mm-hmm. I think it's interesting. I think if there is truly a single view and it's got a robust methodology for verifying delivery and viewability, then let's bring all video into the picture, right? I think that's the big challenge, is uniting all of these different sources. I think the larger issue when you're starting to get into long-tail video in the world of YouTube and others like that, is it's more than just audience delivery and it's more than just viewability. There's also kind of the question of, the appropriateness of the content and whether or not the individuals behind the screen are really true viewers. I think that we know with television, we're never concerned about fraud. I think with broadcaster VOD online, there's less concern about fraud. But as we start to get into the wider world of online video, there are greater questions. And there's certainly plenty of strength in online video, but there's just historically been more challenges with fraudulent behavior and questionable content. So that needs to be accounted for.
Okay, and the last question on measurement is about bringing other data sets into the audience measurement panels. Now, Jonathan, I know you think, and I think all of you think, in fact, that we might need to fuse more data into Barb or their equivalents.
Yep.
And you particularly, you're very excited about automatic content recognition and the data that throws out of smart TVs about what people are viewing.
Yeah.
So just tell us what you'd like to see happen.
I think that's where there's some interesting scales. If you look at smart TV sets in the UK, the likes of LG, Samsung, they're growing, right? So if you're buying a TV at the moment, pretty likely it's going to be a connected or smart TV. And there are companies out there with technology on those platforms that will measure any viewing happening on that screen. And that's not just across linear TV, but if you're viewing VOD on that TV set, if you're viewing Netflix, Amazon Prime, it's able to tell what content is going out. So that's clearly quite an interesting holistic measurement methodology, that you're able to see what's on the screen, doesn't matter where it's being served from, particularly from an advertiser point of view, because you can measure your reach and frequency across all of those disconnected platforms. So there's definitely something there. I think those companies are kind of figuring out that they're not media companies, they're technology and data companies. They've started in the media space and starting to think, well, how can we potentially supply that data and those tools to agencies to help them plan or to help them measure? Because as an agency, we're quite good in the planning space. We've fused various data sets to the Barb panel. So what you were talking about earlier, we've got our own panel of 20,000 people. We fuse that to the Barb panel. We can start trading off metrics that are more than just basic demos. And we're building on that. But the next phase is how do you measure it? On the other end, we can use the same tool to model delivery, but you need a independent third party to be able to measure it, really. We don't want to mark our own homework. It wouldn't be bad, but not from my point of view, but we need to be transparent and make sure we've got a third party in that space. And I think Barb, we're not going to get away from Barb, it's a JIC, and as you said, actually, it doesn't do a bad job of measuring linear TV, and it's how the market's been traded, and I think all the broadcasters are broadly happy with that as a mechanic. It's what we can get over and above that from an insight, from an audience insight perspective, and then a measurement perspective on the other end.
Okay. And do you agree?
Yeah, there's no question. As I say, we've been handling set-top box data now for many years. It certainly gives you scale. With scale, you get some complexities, like you don't always know the sets on. Yeah, all of those things need to. So suddenly you've got from a fabulous data set to not quite sure. But all of those things can be catered for, and if potentially it's managed through a third party, and it's managed through proper auditing rules, I think we have a reasonable chance of measuring it properly. It's just the pace at which we can go, and exactly what we agree is the right thing to do. But I think the willingness is certainly there. There's quite a lot to decide what we actually need and what is good, robust data that can be collected at source probably with permission. Okay, but I say probably. So yeah, I think we're certainly open to the idea. We know we need a unified measure, and we know we need a unified measure that is via a third party. Mm-hmm. Okay, it seems that Bob is the best set currently to be able to do that, and so why wouldn't you take those three things and move them forward?
Okay, so
yeah, I just want to chime in. I think I think ACR is really powerful as well. So we employ ACR data to kind of power all of our offerings when it comes to planning and measurement. We have 9 million televisions providing second-by-second viewing data that feeds into kind of our underlying planning panel, and it's really valuable because it's connected to digital identifiers, so we can take any source of digital audience segmentation, and we can generally identify at least 50 to 100,000 households that exemplify that behavior. We can look at their viewing behavior to determine what they're watching on television, and we can also see when individuals have been exposed to ads on these TVs, what their conversion behaviors looked like. And I think the US has been interesting. So this technology has been kind of widely adopted over the last 2 or 3 years, totally in the absence of any standards. So it's been a kind of Wild West where we say, well, this is powerful technology. It's a great opportunity for innovation. Let's race forward. But as now, this is kind of an approach in technology that's being adopted widely by agencies. The industry is reaching a point where we say, right, well, this group is using the Adobe platform, this group is using this other platform, and everybody working with any panel of any size, nonetheless a panel of 9 million is incredibly difficult. There's so much noise, there's so many challenges of connecting digital audience segments to that large panel that you've such a wide variation of methodologies in place that are determining what to purchase and that are verifying to an extent delivery. So that's certainly not a strong foundation moving forward, and I think there's a major role for JICs to play in this process. I think we need to be able to allow for the flexibility of introducing new audiences for advertisers to focus on the segmentation that's most important to them, but absolutely need strong JICs to make sure, strong standards to make sure that currency is effective and trustworthy.
And in that 9 million, you can pick. Sorry, Jeff. You can identify specific commercials at specific times to specific pieces of data, can you? So if I would say to you, here's a Coca-Cola ad.
Yeah.
Tell me how many times that went out yesterday and where it went out. Can you do that accurately?
Yeah.
Okay, we need to talk.
Okay, well, let's talk about attribution now, because any of you who were here yesterday afternoon, Orange and France Television showed how they were tracking the impact of TV ads on linear into websites. And within 6 minutes, they got data from Orange saying that someone had been exposed to an advert on their set-top box. And they were already, at that point, tracking the impact on the website. I mean, is that the obvious, easy, low-hanging fruit in terms of attribution that TV could do more of today? I mean, Jonathan, would that be of use to you?
It takes you down a road at looking at very short-term metrics, which I'm not a fan of, particularly when it comes to telly. I think that's a bit of an issue in our industry in general, is everything has to deliver an immediate response. We know that's not necessarily how advertising works, not in all cases. But for the brands that are using TV for a response-based KPI, then yeah, it's hygiene, and there are plenty of companies out there doing it. We've TVT, YY, Video B. There's plenty of them out there that use different variants on an algorithm or different variants on stats to be able to show spot went out X, response came in at time Y, there's a window of which to attribute that back to the spot, and that gives you a bit more insight. And it's great as a buyer to be able to look at that on the fly and go, well, actually, I might need to buy some more daytime or some more Jeremy Kyle and less peak or whatever it is. But again, I wouldn't. It's not the holy grail for every advertiser. I wouldn't want to go down that road of saying everything has to work to attribution to an immediate response, because we know that's not how every brand works.
So what verification would you like? What would be useful that currently doesn't exist in terms of attribution?
I don't know why, but every time I see some kind of MMM study or total attribution study, it tells me something completely different. I don't know whether that's YouTube pays back more than broadcast VOD does, or TV pays back more. Everything is different. I don't know whether that's because the research is being done by parties with an interest, possibly. But it tells me something's up. Something's up with either the methodology or that there's no one answer. I think easier access to understand how these channels are paying back in a more real-time fashion than MMM or total attribution allows, which can be quarterly, half-yearly, sometimes yearly before you get those results, and a kind of consensus on the methodology behind it, because there's obviously a lot of different models going on that tell you completely different things.
Yeah, I mean,
we would certainly concur with. We're extremely interested in what we would refer to as outcomes.
Yeah.
Whatever your outcome will want to be, and of course the outcome might not necessarily be that you get a direct point of sale. Clearly, and I'm completely with you that there seems to be a lot of different things that the advertisers actually want to know, and what the definition of an outcome is. So I'm not entirely sure that we would be moving towards a unified method of what an outcome would be.
I think a lot of the time advertisers don't have access to sales data. So we work for a lot of FMCG brands who can't get the sales data from the stores that they sell most of their products in. But we've done some interesting work showing how some of those digital, fast-moving metrics can correlate well to sales. So for a FMCG brand of ours, we looked at every single digital metric, so click-through rate, new visits to website, a list of about 100 of them, and correlated those to sales, and found that new visits to website correlated with 85% accuracy to sales. So that's really interesting, because you then have something trackable in the absence of sales data that you can start to plan and optimize against. So that was quite an interesting finding, is how can we use some of those digital metrics, those fast-moving, accessible metrics, to start tracking performance in TV and optimizing. So
and with AdSmart, certainly now we've got access to such a wealth of data from set-top boxes. We've been exploring through third-party blind matching data from advertisers to say these are our customers, this is what we sold. And with AdSmart, because there is not everybody gets AdSmart, you almost have a state B effective blind source that you can match to say these saw it, these didn't see it, and that works very neatly. But it tends to be the solution, a multiple of solutions to get to the outcome that is required by the agency or the advertiser. Okay. One thing we have, just to, again, wave the little flag a little bit, on the web metrics, we've partnered with Eales that looks at the web traffic immediately as spots go out. And we've, and not surprisingly, they picked up that a number of the creative agencies or facilities houses were using that data through the buyers to change copy.
Yeah.
And we've automated that now, pretty much. So we can show that if a particular piece of copy, day for day, would you believe, day for day, okay, through carrier, the Eales will instruct carrier to tell our system to change the copy rotation. Come on, that gets the blood racing. Yes. Almost. I am that dull. I genuinely am that dull.
I'm pretty sure we did that campaign, actually.
I think you probably did, yeah.
Well, Calvin, your company talks a lot about integrating ad tech and marketing tech and sort of pulling them close together. I presume attribution is one good example. And you mentioned earlier about somebody who goes into a website, doesn't actually fulfill in their basket. I mean, is it easy to integrate the marketing tech, so the sort of the databases and the CRM systems, and pull that data out to make it available to media owners if you want to optimize campaigns?
No, it's definitely not easy. No, it's not easy, but it is possible. There's very heavy work that goes into integrating additional data sources and finding hooks between disparate data sources. So it can all be possible, but pulling it all together is challenging enough, but then pulling it together in a way that systems we can move beyond unifying data to getting to a place where systems can really talk to each other and drive different actions. It's a massive challenge, but it's one that we're really focused on at Adobe. I think we've made huge strides in providing systems that can talk to each other to have a display advertising campaign inform an email marketing campaign to inform the content that displays on a website when different individuals are visiting that site. But connecting that to the TV process is difficult, and connecting that to the data from different owners to additional parties is challenging as well, because most data insights that we see are really owned by one party. So there's certainly the opportunity to broker connections, and we see, amazing applications brokered across the Adobe world and outside of the Adobe world using this data. Certainly not easy, though.
Okay. Do you think it's possible for the TV industry to really lead the way towards this unification? That was one of the things that was in the sort of marketing for this session. Obviously, Google can see a lot of what's going on in the world. TV is considered a bit of a silo compared to the rest of the marketing universe. Is TV in a position where it could really go out to marketers and do a really good job of trying to sort of make themselves a part of that bigger universe? And would it make much difference to how media planners or marketers looked at them and how much money they spent with TV?
I think there's definitely an opportunity to bring it into the fold. It works very differently. I think television's kind of like the beating heart of an advertising and a market effort. Like, that is kind of the real strength of getting a brand out into the world and driving recall and driving a connection with the brand. And from there, digital channels kind of really start to drive much more precise and sequential communications. But there's definitely an opportunity to improve that connection. And I think when we talk about attribution and measurement, especially when it comes to digital conversion, TV definitely needs to reinsert itself. TV deserves a lot more credit for attribution than it's currently afforded.
Okay, I'm going to come to some audience questions in a moment, so if you've got one, I'll ask you just after this one. But Jonathan, just sort of a slightly more down-to-earth question. In terms of multi-screen planning, if we can prove the sort of the total reach and the incremental reach, and especially the frequency cap across all screens, what difference would that make? Does that potentially attract new advertisers? Or?
Yeah, I think it's really important. So Ubiquity's recent report was quite interesting. They came out and said, in a world where TV inflation price inflation is going up, and particularly amongst younger audiences, it's hygiene and it's super important to be able to use multiple platforms. So being able to use broadcast VOD, being able to use addressable TV through AdSmart to fill the gaps where those people aren't watching quite as much as they were in the linear stream. So that is really important. We have to be able to plan across all those platforms, and clients are asking more of us to do in that space. They're asking us how we're tackling inflation, and that has to be through a use of how audiences are consuming content differently. We have a good planning proposition when it comes to that, being able to pull together multiple data sets across linear TV and VOD and YouTube as well, which we include in that camp, so in terms of planning. But again, the measurement part at the back end is tricky. So we're going down a road now where you have to plan for reach and plan for frequency, not just TVRs or GRPs. They are a trading mechanic in my mind and not the be-all and end-all. You still get briefs going, plan between this many TVRs and this many TVRs, and it's just they're a function of reach and frequency and nothing more. So that's a big planning shift, I think.
Okay, and Jeff, your Sky Advanced system, it doesn't get as much publicity as AdSmart, but that's a very clever system unifying TV and digital. Yes. And one of the things you can do, you can see if somebody saw a sponsorship. Yep. You can see if someone saw an ad on TV, and then if they did, you could follow them through into the digital world. Correct. And put maybe a call to action in front of them. Yeah, we do. The first one didn't include a call to action. Just tell us a little bit about that.
Well, so what we're trying to do is to build what we call sequential and consequential advertising. So you say, so if you saw this, then let's not show you the same thing. We'll show you the next piece of copy or the next one. So by taking we have a substantial DMP that is looking at all the Sky entry points, and it does. You can track. Again, there's certain areas where it's very fine, and there's areas where it's not quite as fine. So you have to use probabilistic methodology to get from one to another. But yes, it's certainly I think it's a first and good and important step in trying to use data to get the outcomes and what the advertisers and the agencies want, which is certainly some form of sequential advertising, certainly some form of frequency capping or frequency monitoring. And guess what? It's certainly not perfect, but it's pretty groundbreaking, I think, from what as far as I'm aware, many other broadcasters are doing. So because we have the unique data sets of where we hope to be by the end of or middle of this year to take 6 million set-top box records, which is actually quite small in comparison to some of the US guys. But for us, it's substantial. If we can use that, which we're doing, to support a new method of advertising across platforms, and as you say, if someone then goes outside the Sky environment, then we even track them to that point to be able to say, yes, they were on that website, and we buy data in order to get that. Yeah,
this is non-Sky owned
absolutely right.
properties as well.
Yeah.
I also think there's a really interesting role for AdSmart to play, which it hasn't played historically. So the pitch for AdSmart has been predominantly to reach niche audiences, to serve different copies to different households, probably to get new money, new revenue streams into Sky for advertisers that haven't been on linear broadcast. But I think there's a really interesting opportunity to be able to use AdSmart to optimise your linear buys. So identify those households on your linear TV plan that are being overserved by frequency, so possibly the older end of the scale. And how many AdSmartable homes are there now?
8 million.
8 million, yeah. So it's 8 million households. You could go, right, that household's already seen this ad 5 times, don't serve them anymore and serve a different ad, AdSmartable. So there's an interesting use case for AdSmart and Advanced that currently isn't being used by agencies, but some different products there.
Okay, let's have some audience questions if you've got some then. Okay, there's a gentleman at the back, and if you can just wait for the microphone, please. Yeah, there's a gentleman in the middle at the back there, top row. And just tell us where you're from very quickly and who the question's to.
My name's Ian Dowds, and I'm CEO of UCOM, which is UK online measurement. And it is worth saying that there is an industry standard for online video measurement in the UK, including YouTube, which is UCOM. My question is, the thing that's not covered is the commercial reality in a lot of this. There's a lot of ideals that people want measured. There's a lot of things about efficiency for advertisers, and efficiency tends to mean spending less money. And so everyone's looking to spend less money, but everyone's looking to ramp up measurement. Who's going to pay?
Is that to anyone in particular or everyone?
To the panel.
Okay, who's paying?
Well, I mean, very good question, Ian. I mean, the obvious one would seem to be that the model we have at the moment is the industry pays, yeah? The industry pays at the moment of the IPA, BBC, and the Barb subscribers, and then the data is licensed off and paid for that way. I personally don't see why that would change.
Everyone's looking to pay less.
No, I get that.
So I think
I get that. It's a problem. You're absolutely right, but we've got to face it.
I think that's quite interesting, is that I think there's a slight misnomer that clients want to pay less for their media. The conversations I have quite regularly are, if it can be proven that it's delivering X, Y, Z, for example, I wouldn't mind paying more. If the quality of the media could be proved to be higher or the metrics are higher. So, we're going down the road of, can we offer clients 100% viewable ads and we can charge more for those? Because there is a limited amount of supply in the marketplace. And I think those are some grown-up conversations around cost and quality and measurement need to be probably had in that space.
Is that quite a recent development where they're all willing to pay more?
No, I can't say you, but yeah. I think certainly in the world of brand safety concerns, fraud, etc., the cheap inventory is not the thing at the moment. People are looking to quality inventory to be brand safe. Look at the recent issues. So yeah, probably over the last couple of years, it's become more of an issue. Yeah.
Okay. More questions? Okay. Owen? Okay, down the front row here in the middle, please. So Erwin's from Orange, who did that lovely web driver analysis yesterday.
Yes, so it will be maybe a stupid question. As you share, it's not easy to have trust in measurement, also it's difficult to have a centralized solution. Did you consider a blockchain as a way to have a way of having trust in a not centralized solution, or it does not solve anything?
Blockchain.
Yeah.
Did you consider blockchain?
So I'm going to say no.
No.
But that doesn't mean to say it all depends what you refer to blockchain as.
I mean as a concept.
No. So if blockchain is about identifying everything uniquely and passing that data between us, so that it's not Chinese whispers, so that you start with one, I've got one, you've got one, you've got one, then the answer is yes. I think there's a little bit of a mystique about blockchain is something that is particularly new. And every system that I've ever developed all has unique numbers for pretty much every identifiable thing, and we pass that, and we're passing that amongst most systems. So I would say, not consciously, but absolutely unconsciously, because we do it. Yeah, that we would be. It goes back to for me, every single ad needs to be identified uniquely, and when we're showing the same ad, it should be the same unique identifier. Now, the UK again, wave the flag. The UK for years and years through Clearcast has had one unified ad number, and that doesn't happen in every country by a long way. So it seems that we're on a pretty good base to be able to say we know exactly what the ad is and all the variations of that ad, because now through AdSmart the same ad is potentially varied quite a bit. So if you had that across the world, a single identification for every piece of copy made, then we're beginning to cook with gas, as they say. So I think the answer is yes-ish.
I couldn't care less about blockchain.
Okay. Right, any more questions? Okay, gentleman at the back.
Hi, Russell Ball from Reckitt Benckiser. You guys talked about ACR, and bear in mind all the issues you've had with online privacy. There's got to be some concerns around ACR. Imagine people finding out that everything they're doing on the TV is being tracked. Now, I know there's an opt-in, but personally speaking, I bought a TV last year. That opt-in wasn't very clear at the start, and as far as I'm aware, it's just a one chance to opt in or opt out. So having to find out your kids are watching shows that are being tracked, or you're playing video games that are being tracked, what are the concerns around that?
Should read the T's and C's, shouldn't you?
Is that to anyone in particular or all of them? Okay, do you want to go through one? Calvin, you start with that.
I think it's really important. You don't want to collect any data ingenuously. I think definitely anytime we're looking at a manufacturer who's producing an ACR panel, I ask to see the opt-in screen. I don't want any questions about how open and honest they are about the reason that they're collecting the data. I think the piece that's important to keep in mind is I think everybody talks generally about personalizing advertising or personalizing the television experience and the opt-in process, and that's really what it's all about. The end goal is being able to tailor an ad strategy that shows you ad content that's more interesting to you. So I think it's important. I think it's valuable for the consumer, but certainly a real privacy concern that needs to be taken very seriously.
Okay, Jeff, do you want to take that?
I'm with you 100%. There's no question we would use data that we didn't have permission to use. And the GDPR regulations, of course, seal that absolutely. And you can only see that the direction of travel is that there will be more of it than less. So 100% with you. We need a system where there is absolute permission, and you know as much as you can about that particular household, absolutely with permission.
Okay, another question from the audience? Okay, over there.
Hi, Bobby Richardson from Blinkist. So I'm coming more from the advertiser side, I guess. and I buy TV advertising in a number of markets, including the US and the UK through Amplifi, actually. So I understand. I would challenge slightly. I understand that the UK system is ahead of the US. I would challenge slightly that it's better, because I think for me now, the amount of data that's available, maybe like buying CNN News at 7 p.m. is actually more valuable to me than a set of impressions delivered at any point over the course of a month. But also buying in Australia on a different system and all the rest. So my question, I guess, is more to Calvin. Do you think this kind of global differentiation between all the different ways of buying creates problems for you? Is that holding us back from solving a lot of these issues? And for all of you, do you see a future where possibly we start to get a bit more on the same page globally in buying media?
I think it's an interesting question. I think you're in a really unique position where you are buying across multiple markets. I think there are a few of you in the world who are kind of directing a global strategy for television. So, but I think there will be more. I think there are certainly brands that are looking to consolidate trading efforts within one hub, in which case unified global connections is really valuable. But I think the reality still at this point is that every market has kind of experts focused on trading within that system. So, I think there's a lot of value in being able to connect efforts across markets, I think. But it's not a huge hindrance at this point, I would say.
Okay, well, we're going to wrap up there. So thank you very much for attending. And if you'd like to give a hand to our panel, thank you for all of you.
All right.